not the droid you were looking for. But you came to the right place if you're looking for a really low budget version of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Hey everybody, TR here, and it's time for another Geek Food Friday. Now if you're not familiar with Geek Food Friday, it's where I geek out over TV shows, books, movies, video games, you name it, through food on Fridays. So you get it? Geek Food Friday? Today we're continuing our month-long Star Wars food geekery with a BB-8 cake. Now this is the first time I've ever done any kind of spherical cake, and if you're not familiar with the BB-8, here's a little picture here or here. It'll be somewhere on the screen. Pretty much it's the new robot that's in the next Star Wars movie, and I really just wanted to make a cake out of it, despite the fact that it's a sphere and I'm terrified that the cake is just gonna completely fall apart. Hopefully I know what I'm doing. Now, outside of obviously being inspired by BB-8 for this cake, I also took inspiration from one of my college friends who really wanted to challenge me and asked me to do a Geek Food Friday that was outside of my comfort zone. And doing a spherical cake terrifies me because, if we're being honest, gluten-free cake doesn't quite have the same texture as normal cake, so I'm really scared that this cake is going to fall apart while I put it together, but hopefully I'm going to be doing things the right way and won't have a completely crumbly cake. Well, it'll be crumbly because it's by me. No pun intended. Actually, what am I talking about? That wasn't pun intended. Now, before we can actually start decorating the cake, the first thing we need to do is make the cake itself. Today I'm using 2 boxes of Betty Crocker gluten-free cake mix, mainly because I want to save the time of making this entire recipe. I've got to make the cake, decorate the cake, and I've also got to make the BB-8 topping. So I like to use the Betty Crocker gluten-free cake mix in any kind of really decorating intense recipe because it helps save the time for the entire recipe overall. The other clutch tool that I need for this cake is the Wilton 3D Sports Ball Pan Set. I'll include a link below in my description, but this is a really great kit for making any kind of spherical cake because you don't have to do any kind of crazy cutting or measuring to come out with a spherical cake. The cake pan just bakes it to where you can have 2 half spheres, and it's super easy. Now, since I'm using 2 boxes of Betty Crocker gluten-free cake mix, I need 4 teaspoons of gluten-free vanilla, a cup and 1/3 of water, 2 sticks of butter at room temperature, and now the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to take the 2 sticks of butter and just lightly cream them. I like to cream it before adding in any of the mix because otherwise you just kind of end up with lumpy butter throughout all of your cake mix, and who wants that? And once you've got your butter creamed, go ahead and add the 4 teaspoons of vanilla and cream that into the butter. And once your vanilla has started mixing in, go ahead and add in half of your eggs. And once your wet ingredients are pretty well mixed together, you just want to add in 1 of the bags of the gluten-free cake mix. The reason why I'm not doing this all at one time is I don't really want to have any lumpy batter. I want to end up with a really nice smooth batter once I've put all of the ingredients together. Then you'll want to add in the 3 remaining eggs, mix those well together, and we'll go ahead and add the last box of gluten-free cake mix. And now that our cake batter is well mixed, we're going to go ahead and put these into the 2 half-sphere baking pans, and we're going to bake these in a 350-degree Fahrenheit oven for 28 to 30 minutes. My cakes are cooled and they've been out of the oven now, so we're going to go ahead and make the BB-8 droid that sits on top of our ball cake. Now, instead of using cake for the top of the droid, we're going to actually use some rice cereal treats. And in order to make these, you'll need 3 cups of a gluten-free rice cereal, 2.5 cups of marshmallows, 1.5 tablespoons of butter, and you'll also want a pretty small bowl that is smaller than the size of the ball, and some parchment paper and scissors. And I'm going to make a cut straight down the middle to the center of the paper. The purpose of this is we want to make it pretty easy to roll this up into a little conical shape, because this is going to rest inside of the bowl. And The main purpose of this is to really just make it easy to remove the rice cereal treats after they've cooled. So the first thing you're going to want to do is add your butter to a small saucepan over a medium-low heat. We're going to let this melt completely, and then we're going to add in our marshmallows and melt those while stirring constantly until we have this really nice, gooey, marshmallowy texture. You don't really want any lumps of marshmallow left over, otherwise you're going to have these really weird lumps of marshmallow in your rice cereal treat. Now once the marshmallows are completely melted, we're going to take these off the heat and immediately add our rice cereal, and we're going to fold that in until we have a well-combined rice and marshmallow mixture. Back on to the next step of our cake. We have the marshmallowy treat sitting in the refrigerator, and we're letting that chill so it gets a little bit harder. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and shape and mold our cake into the Happy Little Ball format. So what I did is I went ahead and cut the bottom of one of the cakes, and I cut the top off. And I did a very similar thing for the other cake, only for one of them, it's got a much wider flat space. That's because we're going to use this part of the cake to put our Rice Krispie... Why do I keep calling it Rice Krispies? I seriously didn't use Rice Krispie treats. Because if you didn't know, even though it has rice in it, it's not a gluten-free cereal. So if you're celiac, avoid that crap. But anyways, like I said, you're going to take your puffed rice marshmallow treat, put that on the top of this cake, and that's going to be the BB-8 droid that sits on top of the ball. So that's why we want the really nice flat shape, that way things don't fall over while we're decorating it or while we're serving it. So what you want to do is you want to just place your ball cakes together in such a way that it looks like it's resting pretty evenly and you have a nice ball shape. And now that I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and use some frosting to frost the top of this cake, the bottom of this cake, glue them together, and I'm going to frost the overall cake so that I have a nice round white ball. Now before we start frosting the outer part of the cake, I actually have two little dowels here that are pretty much the height of the cake, plus a little bit more because I'm going to use that to attach and secure the rice cereal treat. But I just want to take these dowels and insert it through my cake. And this will help keep my cake from moving around a lot and give it a little bit more stability, especially when I'm decorating it. And now that my dowels are inserted, I'm going to go ahead and frost the outside of the cake. And I'm also going to speed this up, otherwise this would be a very, very long video and there's going to be a lot of steps to this anyways. So as you might be able to see, my cake is completely covered. And we're going to go ahead and just use our flat spatula here. And we're just going to smooth out the entire surface, because I was mainly previously just focusing on covering the entire cake, and now I'm going to try to smooth out the surface in order to get a really nice smooth surface before decorating it. So now that our cake is completely covered, I'm going to go ahead and take this and put this in the refrigerator for... Oh, no, 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 no! Uh-oh. So if you have a moment like I just did and you completely screw up your cake, that's okay. Just use more frosting to clean up the mistake and hope your idiot face doesn't do it again. So, like I was saying, securely pick up your cake, pay attention to everything you're doing, and put it in the refrigerator to let it chill. I would wait about 30 minutes or so just so that the cake kind of hardens a bit and the frosting isn't quite so, you know, easy to push and make it look all messy. So the top of my BB-8 cake is out of the freezer. I'm going to go ahead and frost this as well in white frosting to get the same nice outer white shell that the main cake has on top of it. And now I'm going to go ahead and take my cake topper and try to carefully center it on top of the cake and just gently press down into the dowels to secure it on top. So as you can see here, I have the cake completely covered in white frosting, and what I'm gonna do is now try to draw the BB-8 design on the cake and hopefully not fail at it. Yeah! So, as you can see here, I have my nifty phone, which I'm gonna be using to cheat profusely because I can't draw from memory. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the orange circles on the BB-8. And from all the photos that I can tell, there are 4 orange circles on the sides of the ball. So I'm going to start with that. And I know that circles can kind of sound like a scary thing to draw, especially with frosting, but we're just going to go for it and hopefully not fail prolifically. So the first thing I'm going to define is where my circles are going to be spaced at. And I'm going to do that by just pretty much drawing kind of the upper and lower parts of the circle with one single dot on the top and the bottom and on the sides like this. So if you can see that, I kind of have some spaced out dots, and the reason why I'm not going crazy and doing them all at once is I am utterly terrified that I'm going to draw like some crazy oval or cube or God, I don't know, some shape that's like a square or something. So I'm going to use this to gauge, where the placement of all of my circles are going to go, because I'm going to have 4 orange circles and I want to plan ahead so that I don't get halfway through and then realize that I'm completely screwed. So I got the makings for my 4 orange circles, and I'm just going to use a couple more dots to kind of outline a circle and make sure that everything kind of looks right and that it looks like an actual set of circles. So see how this doesn't quite look perfect? That's okay. I'm going to use a couple more dots to make a bolder line and also to kind of correct the lumpiness in my circle. So I'm also going to do way more than just draw simple orange circles. I'm going to go ahead and draw a couple notches within each circle, because if you look at pictures of BB-8, it's orange circles with little orange notches within each of them. So each circle is pretty much going to look like this. And I'm just going to speed ahead to when I have all 4 of these done. So all 4 sides have the orange little drawings on them. And as you might have noticed, I tried out some design within the middle of one of the circles. Now I am using a gray icing to draw a couple horizontal lines in the middle, and then using some black icing to do a little bit more of a finer detail. I have a star point on the gray icing and a finer point on the black icing. And the next thing I'm going to do with my black icing is I'm just going to draw some additional details on the side of the balls, connecting the orange circles with black lines and adding what looks like little tiny rivets as well. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decorate the top of the cake. Now the BB-8 has a little antenna, and I'm going to use a gluten-free pretzel stick to gently insert one to the top of the cake. The other thing we want to decorate the cake with is a single Glutino cookie that's been halved, where all I have left is the one half of a cookie. And I'm just going to put a little bit of frosting as glue onto one side of it. And I'm going to carefully place that on the front of the cake. And this is going to act as the droid's eyeball. And thankfully it's not slipping around at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a few more embellishments, and I'm going to draw in a little details on the top of the robot droid. And there you have it. With a few finishing touches, we have our ever so slightly derpy BB-8 cake. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching me make this cake. I had a whole bunch of fun making this. This is probably one of the funnest projects I've had in a couple weeks on Geek Food Friday. This was a lot of care, a lot of love went into this cake, and a whole lot of spilling of things, sometimes on myself as well. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you have any super fun Star Wars food recipes or videos, please include those in the comments below. I'd love to see your guys' creations. And until next time, have a great weekend, and bye! Or what I really should have said is, may the Force be with you. Cringing internally at how geeky and nerdy that was. For the first part of this cake, I obviously need to make the cake. Now I'm going to be making a gluten-free cake using the Betty Crocker. And since I'm using 2 pounds